The war room aboard Earth's orbital station buzzed with tension. Holograms of alien fleets flickered in the air, painting a grim picture of what humanity faced. General Kothak Vorn's broadcast dominated the center display, his booming voice dripping with contempt. Humans, Kothak sneered, his forearms spread wide. A species of trembling insects, too weak to embrace the inevitability of conquest. You cling to hope like fools clinging to sand in a storm. I offer a challenge. Prove you are more than the feeble creatures I believe you to be. Send your greatest warrior. If they survive, your kind may continue, under our watchful eye. If not, your world will burn. The broadcast ended abruptly, leaving silence heavy in its wake. Admiral Price broke it, his voice grim. This isn't just a challenge, it's a spectacle. He wants to humiliate us before wiping us out. In the corner, Captain Samuel Reeve leaned against the wall, arms crossed. His gaze was fixed on the hologram of Kothak's leering face, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. So let's make him choke on that arrogance. The room turned toward Sam. Admiral Price frowned. Captain, this isn't diplomacy? Sam cut him off, pushing off the wall. They're not interested in treaties. They want to prove we're nothing. I say we send someone to remind them we're not just humans. We're Earth. The debate raged for hours. Politicians called for caution, while military leaders argued for action. In the end, the decision was made: Captain Sam Reeve would go alone. The Dax's Supreme Command vessel loomed like a leviathan against the black canvas of space. Its surface bristled with weapons, a testament to the Dominion's philosophy, strength above all. Sam stepped off the transport shuttle, his boots striking the polished metal floor with a deliberate rhythm. The alien escort flanked him, their insect-like mandibles clicking in sync. He kept his head high, his movements controlled. The towering hall seemed designed to intimidate, but Sam's calm demeanor gave away nothing. In the throne room, General Kothak awaited. The space was cavernous, lined with banners bearing symbols Sam couldn't decipher. The general himself sat atop a raised platform, his 4 eyes gleaming with disdain as Sam approached. So, Kothak began, his voice carrying an almost musical mockery. This is humanity's finest? One man? You must be as foolish as you are fragile. Sam stopped at the base of the platform, looking up without flinching. You wanted a warrior. I'm here. Or were you expecting me to bring a fan club? The gathered Dax's soldiers hissed and chattered in amusement, though Kothak's expression darkened. He rose, towering over Sam, his forearms resting on his hips. You misunderstand, human. This isn't a negotiation. This is a test. 3 trials to measure your strength, intelligence, and endurance. Succeed, and we may consider sparing your planet. Fail. He grinned, revealing sharp, serrated teeth. Well, you won't be alive to worry about failure. Sam tilted his head, his lips quirking into a faint smile. Sounds like a fun weekend. What's first? Kothak leaned down, his face inches from Sam's. You'll know at dawn. The cell they gave him was less a room and more a cage. Walls of shimmering energy hummed faintly, bathing the space in a sickly green light. Sam sat on the lone bench, pulling a knife from his boot to sharpen absent-mindedly. His mind churned, analyzing everything he'd seen since stepping aboard. The door hissed open, and a Daxis officer entered. Smaller than Kothak, with a wiry frame and a wary gaze, the alien approached cautiously. Human, it said in a voice that sounded like gravel grinding against metal. You understand the gravity of your situation? Sam didn't look up. Enlighten me. The general will not allow you to succeed. These trials are a charade. Even if you win, he will twist the outcome to his favor. Sam paused, looking at the alien with a raised brow. Why are you telling me this? The officer hesitated. Not all of us share Kothak's views. Some of us respect those who fight against the odds. But be warned, the general's pride will not permit him to lose face. Sam chuckled softly, sliding the knife back into his boot. Good to know. Anything else? The officer glanced at the door, as if expecting someone to burst in. Do not underestimate him. He will test more than your body. He will test your spirit. As the officer left, Sam leaned back against the wall, his smirk fading. Test my spirit, huh? He closed his eyes, remembering the faces of comrades he'd lost in Earth's wars. He'd been tested before. He'd passed every time. Dawn came quickly. The throne room was now an arena, the central floor replaced with a shifting platform of metal and sand. Kathak stood at the edge, flanked by guards and spectators. The air buzzed with anticipation. Sam entered to a chorus of alien jeers. He scanned the room, his gaze briefly locking with Kathak's before settling on the shifting platform. Whatever was coming, he was ready. Kathak raised a hand, silencing the crowd. The first trial, he announced, his voice echoing, will test your strength. Survive, and you may move on. Fail, and your kind will be forgotten. A section of the platform opened, and a beast emerged. Towering and grotesque, it was a mass of muscle, claws, and teeth. The crowd roared as the creature let out a guttural snarl. Sam rolled his shoulders, stepping onto the platform. He glanced at the beast, then back at Kathak. That's it. I've seen scarier things at my grandma's Thanksgiving. Kathak's eyes narrowed, his grin fading. Begin. The beast lunged, and the crowd roared. Sam's heart raced, but his movements were calculated, his training taking over. He sidestepped, drawing the creature into a pattern, testing its behavior. Kathak watched, his expression tightening as Sam dodged attack after attack. The human wasn't just surviving, he was analyzing, adapting. As the trial continued, the audience began to quiet. Whispers of disbelief rippled through the room. Sam's every move was precise, his focus unyielding. The beast lunged again, and Sam struck, his knife finding its mark. The creature let out a final, pained roar before collapsing. Sam straightened, wiping blood from his blade. He turned to Kathak, who sat rigid, his forearms clenched into fists. Round 1, Sam said, smirking. Goes to the insects. The room erupted into chaos, half in fury, half in awe. Kathak's eyes burned with rage as he stood, his voice cutting through the noise. The next trial will be your last. Sam gave him a lazy salute. Looking forward to it. As he left the arena, the whispers followed him. Humanity had sent one soldier. And he wasn't just surviving, he was winning. The arena was alive with a hostile energy, the air buzzing with alien chants. Massive lights hung overhead, casting long, jagged shadows across the shifting platform below. Captain Sam Reeves stood in the center, rolling his shoulders as he sized up his next challenge. The sand beneath his boots shifted unnaturally, alive with subtle tremors. General Kathak Vorn towered on the raised dais overlooking the spectacle, his expression smug. He raised one of his forearms, silencing the crowd. Behold humanity's lone warrior, clinging to the delusion of survival. Let us see how long his frail form endures against the might of the Dominion's finest creation. Sam squinted as the ground ahead of him opened with a metallic groan. A platform ascended from the depths, carrying a cage of electrified bars. Within it, a creature snarled, its hulking form illuminated by flickering blue arcs. The cage rose to the platform's level and disintegrated in a crackle of energy, releasing the beast. The crowd erupted into guttural cheers and jeers. The creature stepped forward, towering at least twice Sam's height. Its sinewy, scaled body gleamed like polished armor, and its 6 clawed limbs clicked menacingly against the metal. A long, barbed tail swayed behind it, as if it were eager to strike. Sam let out a low whistle. Well, aren't you a pretty one? Kathak's voice cut through the noise. This is the Varric. Its kind have crushed entire rebellions underfoot. Let's see how well your pitiful human ingenuity fares against brute strength. The Varric's black, predatory eyes locked on Sam. It snarled, the sound a guttural vibration that seemed to resonate in the pit of his chest. Then, without warning, it charged. Sam barely had time to dive to the side, rolling onto his feet just as the Varric's claws ripped through the space where he'd been standing. The ground shook from the impact. Not exactly subtle, are you? Sam muttered, circling the creature. The crowd roared louder as the Varrock lunged again, swiping its massive claws. Sam ducked, the air whistling above him, and struck out with his combat knife. The blade scraped against the beast's armored hide, leaving only a shallow scratch. "Great!" Sam muttered under his breath. "Looks like I'm going to have to work for this one." He backed away, his sharp eyes scanning the creature for a weakness. The Varrock growled and lunged again, its tail whipping toward him in a deadly arc. Sam dove, narrowly avoiding the barbed tip, which struck the ground with a metallic clang. The beast turned quickly, faster than its size suggested, and lashed out again. Sam rolled, his muscles burning as he dodged another swipe. He kept moving, staying just out of reach, forcing the Varrock to exert itself. Kothak's voice rang out, filled with mockery. "Is that all? Running like prey? Where is the strength your people boast of?" Sam ignored him. He had no intention of playing by Kothak's rules. He circled the Varrock, forcing it to turn and adjust its stance repeatedly. It wasn't long before the creature's movements began to slow, its breaths coming heavier. "Big guy's got stamina issues," Sam murmured to himself. The Varrock lunged again, its claws sinking into the sand as Sam dodged to the side. But this time, Sam didn't retreat. Instead, he pivoted on his heel, launching himself toward the beast. He drove his knife into the exposed joint of its shoulder, just below the armor plates. The Varrock roared in pain, swinging wildly. Sam barely managed to pull his blade free and retreat before the claws came crashing down again. Blood, thick and black, oozed from the wound. The crowd fell silent for a moment before erupting into frenzied cheers. Even the Thraxus, it seemed, couldn't help but respect a good fight. The Varrock, now enraged, charged recklessly. Sam dodged again, this time using its momentum against it. He darted behind the creature and slashed at the base of its tail, severing tendons. The barbed appendage lashed wildly before falling limp. The beast stumbled, its balance compromised. Sam seized the opportunity, climbing onto its back in a fluid motion. The Varrock thrashed, trying to shake him off, but its injuries slowed it. Sam drove his knife into the exposed nape of its neck, twisting the blade with a grunt of effort. The Varrock let out a final, pained roar before collapsing to the ground with a heavy thud. Sam rolled off its back, panting as he wiped the black blood from his blade. He stood over the fallen beast, his chest rising and falling with exertion. Slowly, he turned to face Kothak. The general's forearms rested stiffly on the railing of his dais. His face betrayed a flicker of surprise before he masked it with a cold smile. "Impressive," he said, his voice dripping with false praise. "You've managed to kill a beast. Let's see if you can survive what comes next." Sam sheathed his knife and gave Kothak a mock salute. "Looking forward to it, big guy." As Sam was escorted back to his quarters, he couldn't help but notice the change in the atmosphere. The Thraxus soldiers who flanked him were no longer sneering. Their postures were stiff, their gazes a mix of respect and unease. Once in his cell, Sam slumped onto the bench, running a hand through his sweat-dampened hair. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving his body aching. But there was no time to dwell on the pain. The door hissed open, and the same wiry Thraxus officer from the night before entered. "You continue to defy expectations," the officer said, its mandibles clicking softly. Sam looked up, smirking despite his exhaustion. "Tell your boss he's going to need bigger pets." The officer hesitated, its antennae twitching. "Kothak is furious. The next trial will be far more insidious. Be prepared, human." Sam leaned back against the wall, closing his eyes briefly before cracking them open to meet the officer's gaze. "Thanks for the warning. But don't worry about me. I've got a habit of surviving impossible odds." The officer tilted its head, its expression unreadable. "We shall see." As the doors slid shut again, Sam exhaled slowly. His body ached, his mind raced, but his resolve remained unshaken. Kothak could throw whatever he wanted at him. Sam wasn't here to just survive. He was here to win. Sam woke to the harsh sound of metal grinding against metal. He sat up, his muscles still sore from the previous trial. The green energy walls of his cell flickered before dissolving entirely. A Thraxis guard entered, its elongated limbs moving with precision. "The next trial begins now, human," it announced in a clipped tone, its mandibles snapping shut. Sam swung his legs off the bench and stood, rolling his neck. "No coffee first? You guys really know how to treat a guest." The guard didn't respond, gesturing for him to follow. They moved through the labyrinthine corridors of the Thraxis vessel. The walls pulsed faintly with energy, their alien architecture both intimidating and disorienting. Sam kept track of turns in corridors as they walked, filing away details for later. Finally, they entered a vast chamber bathed in a sterile, white light. At its center stood a single chair surrounded by an array of floating, crystalline devices. General Kothak was already there, his towering frame casting a long shadow. "This," Kothak said, his voice cold and commanding, "is the trial of the mind. Strength alone cannot win a war. Strategy, intelligence, and resilience of thought are equally crucial." Sam crossed his arms, his tone casual despite the tension in the room. "So, what's the plan? Sudoku? A really tricky crossword?" Kothak's mandibles twitched in irritation. "You mock what you do not understand. Sit." The Thraxis guards nudged him forward, but Sam didn't resist. He lowered himself into the chair, the metal cold against his skin. Restraints snapped around his wrists and ankles, and the crystalline devices began to hum softly. "What's the game, Kothak?" Sam asked, his voice steady. The general leaned closer, his eyes gleaming with malice. "The game, human, is survival. This device will project simulations into your mind. Scenarios of war, loss, and impossible choices. Your task is simple: endure." Sam's smirk didn't waver. "Sounds like Tuesday back home." Kothak stepped back, raising one of his arms. The crystals flared to life, their hum turning into a sharp whine. Sam's vision blurred as the room dissolved around him. The first simulation hit him like a wave. Sam stood on a battlefield, Earth's cities burning in the distance. The air reeked of smoke and blood. Around him, soldiers screamed orders, their faces twisted in panic. "Captain Reeve!" A young soldier ran up to him, her uniform stained with ash. "The Dominion's advancing on our left flank. We're pinned down." Sam's mind raced. He knew it wasn't real, but the fear and chaos felt suffocating. "Pull back the wounded," he barked. "Set up a defensive line along the ridge. We're not losing this ground." The soldier hesitated, her eyes wide with terror. "But sir—" "Do it!" Sam snapped. She saluted and ran off. Sam scanned the battlefield, searching for an opening. His mind worked faster than his body, calculating risks, formulating strategies. He directed airstrikes, rerouted troops, and made impossible decisions. But no matter how hard he fought, the enemy kept coming. The weight of failure pressed down on him as soldiers fell, screaming his name. "Endure!" a voice echoed in his mind. It was Kothak's, cold and detached. The battlefield dissolved, replaced by another scene. Sam was in a sterile room, a single table before him. On it lay two devices, each connected to a countdown timer. A voice spoke, mechanical and devoid of emotion. "One device will disarm the bomb threatening your home. The other will disarm the bomb targeting your allies. You have 30 seconds to choose." Sam clenched his fists, his breathing steady. He examined the devices, searching for a way to save both. The timers ticked down mercilessly. 10 seconds. His mind raced, weighing the stakes, calculating outcomes. But there was no solution. Finally, he slammed his hand onto one device. The simulation didn't let him see the result. Instead, it shifted again, showing him the aftermath of his choice. Civilians wept over the ruins of their homes. Soldiers stared at him with haunted eyes. "Endure," Kothak's voice repeated, mocking now. The scenarios came faster, each more harrowing than the last. Sam was forced to abandon comrades, sacrifice innocent lives, and face his own darkest fears. Every choice left scars, memories he would carry even after the simulation ended. But through it all, Sam held firm. His decisions, though agonizing, were deliberate. His mind stayed sharp, his resolve unbroken. Hours, or what felt like hours, later, the simulations ended. Sam's vision cleared, and he found himself back in the chamber. His body was drenched in sweat, his muscles trembling with exhaustion. Kothak stood before him, his expression unreadable. "You survived," he said, his tone laced with reluctant respect. "Few beings, even among the Dominion, have endured such trials without breaking." Sam leaned back in the chair, his smirk returning despite his fatigue. "What can I say? I'm stubborn like that." Kothak's mandibles twitched, his frustration barely concealed. "The final trial awaits. Enjoy your reprieve, human. It will be short-lived." The restraints released, and Sam stood on unsteady legs. He looked Kothak in the eye. "Bring it on." Back in his cell, Sam collapsed onto the bench. His head throbbed, and his mind replayed fragments of the simulations, each more haunting than the last. The door opened, and the Vaxis officer from before entered, its steps hesitant. "You survived," it said, its tone almost admiring. "Yeah," Sam muttered, rubbing his temples. "Tell your boss he's not as clever as he thinks." The officer hesitated. "The general does not respect failure. He will ensure the final trial is decisive." Sam looked up, his eyes hard. "Let him try." The officer tilted its head, its antennae twitching. "Your defiance intrigues me, human. But do not mistake intrigue for safety. Kothak will not let you win." Sam smirked, his exhaustion giving way to determination. "I don't need him to let me win. I'll take it." As the officer left, Sam leaned back against the wall, his mind already turning to the final trial. He'd come this far, endured everything they'd thrown at him. He wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. He was fighting to prove that humanity, for all its flaws, was a force to be reckoned with.